Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, Umber Rays. I am here today to talk about 7 stars. Now, I have been getting so many questions of late, and that's perfectly fine. That's what I'm here for, is for knowledge and helping you guys out. That is basically kind of my thing. But, that being said, I've gotten a lot of questions, and instead of responding to all the comments, I figured, hey, let's make another video. Also because some people have been asking, hey, do you intend to make more global-based videos? Yes. Yes, I do. That is what this is. Look, I have 7-star olive sprite. That's how you know this is a global video. Anyway, long story short, today I want to talk about the 7-star long-term planning. And basically, the reason I want to talk about this is a lot because I've gone through the 7-star thing and it was rather rough. Now, at first you may think, hey, wait, you have a ton of 7 stars, right? I mean, you obviously didn't have any problems with Gil. But during the 7-star batches, that was not entirely true. I was pulling for 7 stars. I was specifically getting things like Rinoa, Squall, CG Hayu, and the 7-star batches were still coming out, meaning that there was a ton of 7 stars to make. As a matter of fact, there was a good period of time where I had approximately maybe 13, 14 7 stars ready to go to be made into, or units ready to be made into 7 stars, but I simply did not have the resources. And even to this day, I will have you note that, honestly, I still have a lot of 7 stars that I have just not leveled up, for the simple reason that I just don't have the cactars. Still, to this point, it was neither worth the time necessarily, nor was it really worth the effort for some of these characters. Mainly trying to focus and figure out was a little bit of a difficulty for a while, trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to make into 7-star and where my resources were best spent. So that is why I am here today, to basically talk about all of that, and I will try and do it in a clear, concise way of doing that. Anyway. Now, on the global side, you guys don't have UOCs yet, and we don't entirely know exactly what is going on with UOCs. This I understand. So, long-term planning in that sense may be a little difficult, but bear with me in the meantime. For your major focus, you should be taking a look at what we do know is coming, and based on what I have seen for the updates and improvements to the first batch of 7 stars coming to the global side, it really doesn't look like a lot of units, especially some of the units that really did need improving, just probably will not get any kind of improvements. Units like Orlando, who are already strong to begin with, Gummy is not interested in making them any stronger. They are not interested in making your units outvalue new units. That's the point of a lot of the gacha system, to keep you pulling for brand new stuff. And while that may be unpopular, they are a company, they are trying to make money, so it does make sense that this is what they are doing. But with that being said, having a game plan is a really, really big thing. Back when the 7 stars first came out, I went crazy when they first came out and just, yes, 7 stars of everything, 7 stars of everything. Let's just build them all into 7 stars. And I quickly ran out of Gil and found out that it was incredibly hard to kind of keep up with the amount and the surprises of what I got in the future. For instance, when I got, you know, certain characters that were a big part, that were not part of my plan to get, and not having the Gil to make them into a 7-star really made me consider just how much Gil I should be saving. Now, me personally, I just have a general rule. I will not go below 10 million, just in case there's something that comes in the future. Now, global people, I know what you're thinking. Well, we already know that's everything that's coming out. Well, not necessarily. There may be some brand new units. There may be some very unique events to come to global in the near future, and some cool 7 stars. I'm personally hoping for some brand new exclusive units, kind of like in the vein of Olive or Fravia or Aang to come to in the future, and some kind of a surprise event. Or who knows, maybe you'll see some surprise collaborations or anything like that. But the long story short is you want to keep at least 10 million Gil. And remember that while awakening a 7-star cost 3 million gil a piece to do each unit, you do still have to level these units up. And while it doesn't take a lot of money to necessarily level all of these units, it does take some gil. So there can be some extra costs. Not only that, but enhancements are still a thing that happen almost every month. I mean, like, worthy, good enhancements, not just whatever mediocre enhancements. But the long story short is that you should try and save about 10 million gil, roughly, just to keep it in reserve in case there are any surprises in the future. With that being said, cactars are another thing. Now, even on the on the JP side, fusing cactars and trying to have consistently enough for units that come into the future can be a little bit difficult, and it can be hard. And fusion rate events don't always come, although recently on the JP side, it's disproving my theory. Anyway, long story short is that you kind of want, it takes 10 of these level 60 max cactars, which do take a while to build. So you should definitely be thinking about, you know, not just this batch, but the future batches too. Sure, you might be able to make a few 7 stars now, but is that necessarily better than potentially just saving it for someone like Transtera, who is considerably stronger than, I would say, most of the characters in Batch 1? You could probably make an argument for Orlandeau and Olive, but other than that, the resource spending can be a little bit more important than trying to get all the 7 stars you can right away. And it should be noted that the 7 stars are really not needed for the first little bit. Omega is able to be beaten by a team of 6-star units, so that is, you know, perfectly fine to do it that way. While content will start getting harder or more difficult in the future, you know, future units will make it considerably easy, especially Transtera, CG Hayu, as well as a few other units that I can think of. But the long story short is that, you know, fusing your resources and everything, stat pots, gil, as well as EXP, is all rather important. But there's more than that. Something you need to consider about, and I guess on the, you know, we'll say, you know, as a general rule, talking about 7 stars, when we're talking about one of the most important things you can potentially get for any 7-star, it's that unit's TMR, which means that trust is a big part of this. And so, also when I'm talking about trust, I know that the global side uses TMR farming. On the JP side, if you guys ever are interested in doing the JP side, just don't TMR farm. There are other ways of doing it. Yes, some people will say, well, I've never been banned for it. But hey, if you want to risk losing your account, that's perfectly fine. Ban waves do happen. But getting back to what I was actually talking about, TMRs are just the most important thing. Whenever I'm getting a brand new unit here on the JP side, for instance, Aerith and Red 13, I basically am starting to plan ahead of time thinking, okay, if I get either of these units able to make them to a 7-star, am I able to get their TMR right away? And that is something I always plan for. That is something I always start planning for. And if you want to get the most out of your 7 stars, you absolutely need it. Orlandeau's TMR has basically been considered kind of a joke for a while. The stats on it are nothing. The abilities on it are not that good. But Orlandeau gets a massively big boost for being able to equip this. You know, extra attack, new ability, or just a whole bunch of new strengths to him, as well as, I believe, improving his limit burst too, which makes him just generally considerably stronger. And this is something that repeats for pretty much every unit in the future. Having their TMR is an important thing to do. So, management is important. Again, not for what you do see, but what you don't see. Doesn't mean that Gummy could not just, you know, bring forth all of a sudden a brand new 7-star global exclusive that no one's seen before, that is way overpowered for the time that it is introduced. And I would expect to see that sometimes after CG Hayu came out, because CG Hayu is has like a 6-month gap between him and the next physical attacker that can really put up a chaining battle against how much damage CG Hayu is able to output. But 7 stars are expensive in a lot of ways, in terms of trust in Moogles, in terms of stat pots, in terms of gil, and in terms of EXP. All of these things you should be planning for, potentially saving for something in the future. You know, you never know. And for more free-to-play players, that could be insanely more valuable for you in the long run. I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm just saying it's a possibility. So resource management is a big thing. Now, the other thing that a lot of people ask me about is two 7 stars versus a super TMR. And honestly, there is no easy answer to this. Obviously, some units are better as super TMR, are better for getting super TMRs. Some are better for just having 2 7 stars. The most classic example I always give is Runera. Runera, 2 7 stars of Runera's basically is easy mode for 6 out of 8 weeks in Arena, and the only week that she doesn't really work in is the weeks where you can't use Wind or Holy. But other than that, she is absolutely 100% dependable in Arena. I absolutely love this girl. Her super TMR is nice. I really do not question that at all. Some dark resistance and some, I believe it is Demon Killer? Undead Killer? It's one of those two. But the super TMR is nice, but definitely nowhere near as valuable as just having 2 of these girls. On the other hand, taking a look at anything from like Beatrix to CG Seghart to potentially even, you know, Citra or CG Lid, super TMRs are almost always more valuable in those cases where 2 of those units just doesn't really give you any benefit. There is no benefit to having 2 CG Lids in a party. Really, there isn't. I mean, skipping cooldowns on their cooldown abilities, whatever, but still, I would not say that CG Lid is a unit that's, if someone said, hey, do you want 2 7s of her or super TMR? I'd jump right for that super TMR right away. So, it depends on the unit, it depends on the super TMR, but for the most part, Chainers, usually better for having 2 copies of them. If you have enough on your friend list, it may not matter, but still consider that. And for the other side of the coin, you know, if it is essentially a chain finisher, if it is a tank, then you're probably better just going for the super TMR most of the time. And you have to remember that super TMRs are something that is extra. They are basically super equipment. You do not need them to clear a lot of the content until quite possibly more recently on the JP side, which is still about 9 months out from the global side, give or take. Now, so super TMRs, don't stress about them. They're not that important. Last but not least, I want to talk about missions. Now, missions are something that we've had on the JP side. There are beginner missions, there are intermediate, and there are advanced missions, which are basically how many 7-star TMRs can you make? Or, I mean, how many 7 stars can you make? This is one of the things where you have to consider your short-term goals versus your long-term goals. Short-term goals here will basically say, well, I want to get that super TMR right now, so 4 Finas? 4 CG Finas? Fuse. Oh yes, 7-star and a super TMR and a 50% trust goal. But what you have missed out on is another 7-star. Now, on the JP side, these resources have been anywhere from the smaller end just being 10 million gil, which sounds impressive till you realize, oh, that's just 3 7-stars and I need 100 to max this out. But the other things have been UOC tickets, which are incredibly valuable, and whatever the global equivalent is will probably still be pretty damn valuable as well. Oh, also there was a 5-star EX ticket in here somewhere. It doesn't matter. The last one being a highly powerful accessory ring that gives 30% to all stats, as well as 20% to HP and MP, and, you know, tiny bit of defense and spirit. Just generally nice, but basically a bonus. Now, for free-to-play players, you may say, well, I'm just never going to get there or not. Well, you're not going to with that attitude. Sorry, it's a joke, kind of. But anyway, long story short, 7 stars are kind of rare, especially for free-to-play players who are trying to get, you know, powerful units. When you do happen to just get insanely lucky off of a whole bunch of 5-star EX tickets and you finally get to 4, having, you know, waiting a little bit on that trust, that 50% trust Moogle, to get another 7-star will essentially give you the benefit of another 7-star towards those goals. Now, it could be that Global may not give those goals, but I'm very much doubting it. I think it's a pretty major part of the game. That's not what I meant to click into. There we go. So, take an example if we had, I don't know, 4 Aeriths. We had gotten very lucky. We had gotten 4 Aeriths. Now, fusing 2 in together will give you your first 7-star. If you only had 3, and then you fuse in, you will get that 50% trust Moogle, and as well as 50% towards a super TMR, like so. But if you were to wait and get your 4th Aerith, which again might be based on RNG, or heck, maybe you get it from a UOC. Here you have a UOC, or here you have the opportunity to make 2 7-stars, fuse them in together, and by the way, for anyone wondering, this mission thing that I am talking about with the 7-stars did count everything retroactively, meaning that every 7-star you had made before basically counted. I probably would have been closer to 90 or 100 if I had waited on quite a few of them. I would have had less skill, but I would have been closer to completing this and being, you know, just closer to some better rewards as well. So, 7-stars have a lot of questions, and you need to basically figure out, you, the viewer, yeah, you, I'm talking to you right now. Ooh, that's right, I can see through the camera, you're scared. Anyway, you need to decide what are your short-term goals in the game versus your long-term. How much resources do you want to spend on X, Y, and Z now versus the potential of something later? In general, it is a good idea to save towards future batches if you have the possibility of getting something that is a lot better. The initial excitement of trying to get a 7-star and just making a 7-star, I know that feeling very well. I made a ton of them in the first batch. And while the first batch was, you know, bigger on the JP side, I mean, I didn't have Transterra, and I just made everything, even Lightning, into a 7-star, and I have never used her once since I made her into a 7-star. I don't feel bad about it, but, you know, would have been some extra gil back then, possibly when I would have needed it. You need to figure out where you want to spend your resources, how to allocate your resources, what is the best use of your resources, because everyone will be essentially different and everyone will have different goals from one another. Those goals will essentially figure out what you want to do. So, with that all being said, I've talked for about 20 minutes about the importance of having a plan for all of this. And I know, planning, investing, thinking about your future isn't necessarily as fun, but hey, I have tried to give a little bit of help so I can sleep. Actually, I was going to sleep anyway tonight. I was going to sleep just fine. Are you kidding me? I'm tired. It's 40 degrees here lately. Alright, long enough. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video when I will talk about probably the first batch of 7-stars enhancements and what I think about them. Gummy tried. I'll see you next time.